To help a little with life's flow, we introduced the NABS WellFest Roadshow. We thought it would be nice and catchy, and now we've brought it to M&C Sachi. And you will do your best to enjoy the ideas from WellFest. Now it might be something that you like to have a go on a smoothie bike, or if you feel a little frustration, there's a workshop on meditation. Have a massage also here, and you'll find your mind gets clear. And then life will be forgiving, you will have a better living. So if you want a good time and a good attitude, come here for your wellitude.
Basically the workshop today is quite participatory. We're showing some basic skills around waking up the body, so getting the body involved, and then using the breath, focusing on the breath, and then some guided meditation techniques. So these are all things we can do very quickly, so it doesn't take too much time, and trying to do something in a way where people can integrate these skills into their everyday working life.
We've been running a workshop all about fear and how fear holds us back in our life. So it might be fear that we're a fake, or fear that we're going to get caught out, or any amounts of fear that we have. And this is about helping to dispel those myths around fear, and how actually if you got rid of the fear in your life, you'd be able to achieve and do so much more. So that's what we did this morning.
Psychology and physiology of stress in a couple of minutes. Before we do that, we need to think about what it is that makes us stressed or anxious. Top of most people's list, and the reason that lots of you are here, is other people make us really stressed. When we blame other people for making us stressed or anxious, we say that they're difficult, or an arsehole, or a psycho. And sorry for swearing. That will happen. When we say that they're psychos, that's the definition that we're going to look at in more detail this evening. Psychopaths are, well, when we hear that word, most people think of violent criminal,
American Psycho.
Yeah, that kind of thing. We've all got that stereotype in our mind.
I thought I was going to find out if she was.
Oh well, we will. We'll do a test in a minute to find out. Maybe. You never know. Yes, so we think of that stereotype of a psychopath, don't we? But actually, there's many psychopaths, functioning psychopaths, non-criminal psychopaths among us. Yes. And when you hear this, you'll laugh a bit more, maybe. According to Paul Babiak and Robert Hare, they said that, well, they think that 1 in 25 of us, 1 in 25, would qualify as being on the functioning psychopath scale. So there's more than 25 of us here, Helen. They are among us. So what we're going to do first, before we look at these tools, is we need to understand what happens to us when we feel stressed by this difficult person. So we're going to call them the trigger. We know what it's like when the difficult person, I don't know, comes up to us and gives us an unreasonable demand or request, or a client has signed off on a brief, and then overnight they've had some kind of divine inspiration, and then they change the parameters and we've signed away the next 2 weeks of our lives. We know these kind of situations. So that we'll call that our trigger. What happens is we have a physiological reaction where adrenaline is released into our body when we're exposed to a trigger. That will happen. There's not much that we can do about that. It's on such a primitive level. You know that rush of adrenaline you feel when you're exposed to a trigger? You know what that feels like. Also, what happens on a psychological level is the limbic part of our brain. This is the most primitive part of our mind. The limbic brain goes into survival mode, really. And you've all probably heard of these 3 options that it can choose from: fight, flight, we want to run away, or we freeze. So we've all probably experienced this at least once in our lives. So you recognise this. This will happen. There's not much you can do to stop this first part happening. Then what happens is our subconscious will kick in and we'll do learned compensatory or safety behaviours as a response. These can be things that we've learned over time and we've done over time that have provided us with some kind of comfort or relief or release from that stressful situation that we're in. It can be stuff like biting our nails, for example, that kind of safety behaviour. Or some of us disconnect and disengage, and you know that kind of glaze thing that some of you are doing? No. No, but you know when you disengage, and it's kind of like a self-protection thing. And then what we do is we have an emotional reaction. So we can be biting our nails, for example, and then we might get upset and cry, or we'll disengage, and then we'll come out with anger or something like that, some heightened emotional response. So that's the classic reaction to stress. What we're going to do is this instead. Some of the tools and techniques that you guys over here have learned through WellFest today will apply, and the tools that we'll do for the rest of the evening will help you to do this thing that we're going to do. And that's intercept here. We're going to activate the frontal lobe. This is the part of our mind that can analyse. We can weigh up responses. We can consciously rationalise what's happening to us and decide to behave in a different way. Have control over our attitudes, our thoughts and our behaviour. And that's what we're going to learn to do this evening. So we're going to intercept here, do a conscious analysis of what we're experiencing. The first part of which includes knowing this is going to happen and be okay with it. Think, okay, the adrenaline rush has come. I want to run, I want to fight. Just have that. Know it's going to happen. Don't worry about it. It will pass in 2 seconds maximum. Consciously analyse what's happening to you, and then you can have a rational response. The reason this little arrow is here is just to show that when we first practice doing this, sometimes it might go wrong. You know how it is when you learn a new skill, you make mistakes, that's okay. You can still come back from having an emotional reaction. Just think, okay, I've lost my temper, or I feel myself welling up, whatever it is. Consciously analyse what's happening and then move to a rational response. It's a simple enough concept, isn't it? But quite tricky to do. So we're going to start with the basics and then build from there. And by the end of the evening, you'll have a few tools you can use which will help you do this thing when you're around your difficult person. Okay, so the first thing is to remember and know that it is not about you. It really isn't. If you're dealing with a functioning psychopath or a difficult person, they will be behaving like this, whether it's at you or at whoever else is in your position, standing in front of them. When you can learn to recognise that it's their dysfunctions that are making them behave and think the way they are, and it's not about you, that can help you emotionally detach from the situation and see it for what it is. See them for what they are, and maybe even have a little bit of sympathy for somebody who can't control their attitude and their behaviour in a professional environment. This is a tool that was designed by a gentleman called Dale Carnegie. You probably would have heard of him. If you haven't heard of him, you would have heard of the book, well, at least one of the books that he wrote. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah, a really famous book. He wrote lots of other ones too. Very well-respected sociologist. And he designed this thing called the magic formula. This is such a powerful tool to use. It's my favourite tool of all the tools and techniques that I know and use with my clients. It's my favourite. It's the most powerful way of speaking to somebody when you need them to cooperate with you. It works on everybody, from the super shy to the most cynical bastard psychopath. It will work because it's so persuasive. And here's why. When we want people to do something for us or with us, we usually just do this thing. We usually just tell them to do something, to take an action. But when we tell somebody to do something for us or with us, they ask 2 questions. Internally for sure, and sometimes out loud. The first question that they ask is, why should I listen to you? They're searching for credibility. We all search for credibility in everybody. It's just what we do as humans, to see if the person is safe, to see if you searched and are still searching for my credibility. From the moment I started talking, you're judging, you're picking it, saying, can I trust you? Does she know what she's talking about? That's fine, it's normal. We do that. So if we know that, we can prepare for it, and we can give the people that we're talking to as much evidence as we possibly can to build our credibility, so that we answer that first question, why should I listen to you? We answer it with credible evidence. Then, the second thing that people think when we ask them to do something is, why should I? So why should I listen to you? And why should I? What's in it for me? We're selfish, really, as humans, and I don't mean that in a bad way. We just are. We need to survive. We care about what happens to us. We care about what happens to other people too a little bit. If we're psychopaths, we don't. But most of us do care a little bit about other people. We definitely care about ourselves. So if you can answer those two questions, you will much more likely encourage the other person to do the thing you suggest. Why should I listen to you? That's evidence. And why should I do the thing you suggest? Well, sell them the benefits of doing the thing you suggest. And that's the benefits to them, not the benefit you'll get. For example, a psychopath wouldn't help you finish a brief because it will really help you out. They'll be like, well, I don't care. What's in it for me? So find out what they want. What are they interested in? What motivates them? What drives them? When you know that, you can incorporate that in the benefit and convince them to do the thing that you need them to do for their benefit. And make sure it's a real benefit to them. It's not like a fake benefit. Don't lie or manipulate somebody, otherwise you would be veering towards difficult yourself. So yeah, make a genuine benefit that they would